So our next presenter is Dwight Hobart. His title is Imperial Woodchuck. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Dwight Hobart. So listen to this bio. It's fantastic. It's a little long, but it's a great story. His full name is Timothy Dwight Hobart II. He was born in the Texas Panhandle and raised at the Hobart Ranch in Washita Creek, about 100 miles northeast of Amarillo. Mr. Hobart played 9-ball and 3-cushion billiards at the University of Texas for a year and a half before dropping out to work at the Seattle World's Fair in 1961. He joined the U.S. Marine Reserve in 1962 and was intermittently on active duty within the continental United States until 1967. Although he has worn and has used spurs, he has never had heel spurs, which is good. It's a common affliction. He took a degree in Russian language and literature from Boston University in 1966 and read comparative literature at Indiana University in 1967 to 1967. So he studied photography at the UC Berkeley Extension Center in San Francisco in 1973 to 1974. He was a magazine and wire service photographer in Beirut before and during the Lebanese Civil War in 1975 and 76. From 75 to 82, he kept an apartment in the North Beach neighborhood of San Francisco, where he hung out. Some San Francisco fans. He hung out and consorted with architects, artists, writers, filmmakers, musicians, dancers, photographers, restaurant workers, former intelligence analysts, and the occasional archaeologist. On Bastille Day, July 14th, 1985, Mr. Hobart and his chef associate, Mr. Drew Allen, opened a louche bistro in San Antonio called the Liberty Bar. Woo! In 2010, the restaurant moved to Alamo Street, where it remains open today. In January of 2009, Dwight Hobart was introduced to Patty Ortiz. Woo! At the second table back from the front window in the dining room of the Liberty Bar on Josephine Street. Although Patty professes not to remember the initial encounter, she did consent in 2012 to become his first, and so far, only wife. The last part is his words, not mine. I didn't imply anything. Everybody, Dwight Hobart.
I push this button here that's got the light on it. The Pasta Luego special is fettuccine with goat cheese, epazote, and pecans. In the summer of 1975, some of us went over to Beirut. Most of us came back. That's it, except for the details, and I wouldn't want to bother you with the details. Palestine was, and Israel is, an arid country, but the Jordanian desert is a barren plain. People live on it today and have for thousands of years who call it home. The Palestinians do not call it home. As kids in West Texas, we drank a soda pop called Orange Crush from an odd amber dark bottle. But when you poured it into a glass, it wasn't orange, it was clear. Arabs simply call it crush. In 1869, a British captain navigated his vessel in total darkness through a mass of ships waiting to open the Suez Canal. When dawn broke, the French were horrified to find the Royal Navy first in line, impossible to pass. Arab legionnaires guard Azraq Oasis, the only permanent freshwater source for 5,000 square miles. Folks here have been fretting about their neighbors since the lower Paleolithic period. In September of 1970, some of the neighbors under George Habash hijacked and destroyed on the ground 3 jet airliners at an abandoned World War II airfield. The passengers were shooed off the planes and encouraged to run. They did. Only part of us is sane. Only part of us loves pleasure and the longer day of happiness, wants to live to our 90s and die in peace in a house that we built that shall shelter those who come after us. The other half of us is nearly mad, loves pain and its darker night despair, and wants to die in a catastrophe that will set back life to its beginnings and leave nothing of our house save its blackened foundations. In June '75, at a rally to celebrate the killing of 22 Israeli school kids, a 12-year-old boy in a second-hand Boy Scouts of America uniform sold political pamphlets in front of a recruiting poster. In August '76, that same boy, now 14, wore a red Blood Vengeance headband and carried an AK-47 on the Beirut Green Line, where plants, shrubs, and trees grew abundantly in a state of anarchy. The ruggedness, simplicity, low cost, and effectiveness of the Russian-built RPG-7 rocket launcher has made it especially popular with irregular and guerrilla forces from Vietnam to Afghanistan. The psychiatrist at the American University Hospital in Beirut said that young men thrive in the pursuit of a purposeful masculine identity so long as they don't get hurt too bad or killed dead. Young women, not so much. Mothers saw the situation as a matter of simple practicality. After the age of 30, it's all maintenance. In the Christian neighborhoods, beauty parlors remained open. Cigarettes were readily available throughout. Children embraced the opportunity to shirk schoolwork and spend more time with mom and dad. The Syrian Tank Corps enjoyed all they could stand of the Russian-built RPG-7 rocket launcher. Appearances are not held to be a clue to the truth, but we seem to have no other. At a certain point in life, perishable fact comes face to face with enduring fiction. Architectural fantasy, political fact. Maddened by world events, I took a notion to trudge up 22 flights of rubble and dust in the reeking heat. On the roof of the abandoned concrete shell, I took off all my clothes, lay down, and fell asleep. 2 snipers on their way to work came upon this social error and frog-marched me away at gunpoint to a stern charge of public indecency. Marwan Rekmawi's Monument for the Living at the Tate Modern in 2011 brought it all back. What I saw up there was a dense cloud of rubber fumes and black smoke boiling out of the tire warehouse burning in the port. The buildings of downtown Beirut looked as though they had been gnawed on by giant rats. U.S. Ambassador Godley's thought bubble says, "I would like to add one more thing. If any of you have any sense, you'll follow in my footsteps and get the fuck out of here." His successor's riddled body was found full of bullets on a trash heap outside the city. For the next 15 years, Lebanon sliced itself up and gorged on the consequences. Then came Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. You can do almost anything with bayonets, except sit on them.
Thank you, Dwight. That was amazing. I first have to ask, were most of those images yours, all the photography that you showed?
Well, I didn't do the pigs.
Okay, but otherwise, yeah.
Yes.
Great. Are you still shooting? Are you still doing photography? What inspires you today?
Well, actually, I'm inspired in life by my wife, the artist Patty Ortiz, and my granddaughter, Sochi Goldschmidt, who appears to have more talent than all the rest of us put together.
Right. So your title in the program is Imperial Woodchuck. Would you care to explain that?
Donald Duck's nephews, Huey, Louie, and Dewey, belonged to a fraternal society called the Royal Woodchucks. The senior member of that society is the Imperial Woodchuck.
Right. The Imperial Woodchuck. Makes sense. So, I think throughout your life, I feel like you have a varied past. You seem to be really a true collector of people and experiences. How do you bring that to Liberty Bar today?
The Liberty Bar, in brief, began with a party that involved a woman from San Antonio named Lydia Mendoza. Mm-hmm. And she played her guitar and sang at that party, and the entire experience probably is what led to the thing happening subsequently. But I remember when she arrived there, we gave her a beer, and there were some ladies with her who had a beer, and she went into the bedroom of my apartment, sat down, and then pretty soon a young woman stuck her head in the kitchen where three of us gringos were fixing all this Diana Kennedy Mexican food, and said, "Lydia wants to know if you would like for her to play her guitar and encourage you." And I said, "You bet." And the lady turned it back into the room and said, "Dice que sí."
And that was the beginning of it.
That was it.
All right, great. That's fantastic. Thank you, Dwight.